and welcome to Monte Carlo to Marlow. This podcast is sponsored by the Marlow Living Loyalty app. Hi, Nancy. Welcome to... You're in Monte Carlo and I'm in Marlow. So yeah, we got that one right. So welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Krista, thank you so much. Let me just jump in here right away. I really appreciate it. And I love the fact that you're making this really interesting connection for something different for people to dive into with their ears.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I feel like I've been trying to meet you since I started organizing my festival in Monaco in 2018. So it's really nice to finally actually have a conversation with you. It's taken that long. So,
Yep.
and that is the reason the podcast is called Monte Carlo to Marlow, really. So tell us really that you're Canadian and you decided to swap snow for sunshine. It says
Thank
in your
God.
bio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In 2001. So that, you've been there a long time. Talk about why you wanted to go to the south of France, apart from how beautiful and sunny it is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, they just had in the news this week because we've had really cold weather and they were talking, the ski stations have opened a week early. And I looked at my husband, I said, it's 25 years and I still loathe the fact that people are skiing. I'm like, it's cold. I just want to stay by my sea and stay warm. I didn't come here for the sun, that's for sure. But in 2001, sort of my life crumbled, everything. I think we all have those moments where it's like, what else can go wrong? And it was one of those times. And just as luck had it, my brother and his family had just been transferred here from Galway and bought a house. And he said, why don't you come over and kind of start afresh? The great part is I have a long connection with France. I had done a trip here in high school for art for a couple of weeks, so Paris and Nice area. And then I went to Villefranche for the Université Canadienne in France in 1990. And it doesn't exist anymore because the guy was caught out for fraud or something like that. But it was a Canadian university, so we were here for a year and I loved it. And I always wanted to find a way to live here, but I couldn't at that time. And when I came in 2000 with my brother, 2001, it was the same. You can leave and come back here and it's the same thing. It's that, wow, the light, the warmth, and everyone comes here and you think, I wish I could live here. And for me,
It's exactly the same thing I say first about every time I go over, the light. There's something about the light, isn't there? As soon as you get off the plane and you go along the Promenade d'Anglais.
Yeah. Oh, you walk along the Promenade d'Anglais and you think, this is free. I can walk here till I'm 100 years old. Nobody can stop me. And it's so beautiful. It's, the light's amazing. Oh, yeah.
I look at it and think, how's that turquoise sea just so specific to that area? Yeah. It's funny you say about France. That's where my place is. And there's quite a famous international language school there now.
Oh, yeah.
A similar place to your university.
So the Institut de Francais is kind of just above village level, like in the main area.
I look out from my terrace.
Right. So the Université Canadienne en France was way up the Grand Corniche, and it was quite isolated. It was a beautiful, beautiful area. But obviously they isolated us so that we couldn't escape and get into trouble, which we did anyway. But it certainly gave you a taste for living here at a young age. But, that was 1990. How old would I have been? Like 21, 22. And when I came back when I was 32 and, my heart was like scattered in pieces. I couldn't even put it in a suitcase. And I came here to start a new life like many people do.
Yeah.
But I came by myself. And a lot of people come here, there's that terrible expression that's trailing spouse. So the person that follows with the kids, with their, whether it's the husband or the wife that's working, you follow them wherever they're leaving an expat life. And I didn't. I just came here by myself. And to be honest, I think no matter how you come to the south of France or Monaco, no matter what your financial situation is, it's a really tough adjustment. And I'm not sure people would really do it if they knew how tough it was. I thought, okay, I'm coming in my singles, I'm 30s, I'm going to be like Sex in the City. My life's going to be all about like, oui, monsieur, learning everything I possibly could about the French because I'm having a relationship with all these men. But it wasn't like that because the French are very closed. Yeah. And it's very hard for couples to fit in. It's very hard for people to find their place other than just thinking, I'm an expat and we speak English. That's not enough to bond friendships and use as a stepping stone. So it was really lonely. I was thrilled that I had the opportunity. I was thrilled that I found a way as a Canadian, not an EU citizen, to find a visa that allowed me to work here because I didn't want to come here and work on a yacht or something where I couldn't use my brain. I really wanted to find that path for myself. So I was really lucky to find the visa, but it was tough. It was tough. I was really lonely and sad
Oh,
to the point that my nephew, I was with my brother and his wife, and they had 3 kids, probably at the time like 16, 13, or maybe a 10, something like that. And the oldest was at a private school, and he went up to his teachers and said, "My Aunt Nancy has no friends. Could you guys take her out one
oh,
night? Because she just, and you're like, okay.
I
And
get
I
it
also
though.
learned,
Yeah.
yeah, you get it, right? I mean, it's very, and the best story, and I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. I was getting my legs waxed, and the girl that was doing it was a 20-something-year-old. She was really sweet. She lived with her boyfriend. She had her little business, and I could not fit in. I couldn't figure out what it was. And North Americans, and I'm sure it's the same with the Brits, like we're quite bold when it comes to, oh, that's a person I want to meet. I'm going to go talk to them. Here, you can't do that. So I was telling her I was like frustrated. I couldn't make friends. I couldn't date. And she told me this great story. She said, Nancy, I'm going to tell you something. If my best friend calls me in the middle of the night and she's just broken up with her husband, I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to drive there. She's going to get in the car. I'm going to hug her. We're going to cry together. And then I'm going to take her to a hotel because she's no way as a single woman going to stay in my house with my husband. And she said that distinction is why you as a single person aren't getting invited out when it's mostly couples.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the same. I do actually have mostly couple friends in Villefranche when I go over. And I don't really get invited to dinners, even though I've known them all for 10, 15 years, because the numbers are odd. And I don't
Yeah.
think they think I'm going to go off with their husbands. But I definitely know what you're saying about that in other circumstances. But
But
yes,
add to that, Krista, is to say that the other side of that, just on a friendship level, is that when you arrive here as an expat, the expats that have been here for a long time, I don't know if you found this, but they kind of keep their distance. Like they're friendly, but they're like, you know what? I've been here down this road before. People come, people go. I'm not going to invest in a friendship till I know that this person's kind of here to stay. And
yeah,
also, the things that we first go through are rather trivial. When we think they're big things like, oh my gosh, like the store's closed from 12 to 2:30. Gosh, golly, what the heck? And we're like, yeah, get used to it.
yeah,
There's
it's
things that happen
France.
here.
The shops are never open when you want them to be. Yeah.
Yeah. So people, the willingness to invest in friendships also is a little bit limited when you first come here. So it can be really lonely. I don't know. I mean, I've been here 25 years and I wouldn't say I know lots of happy people.
Yeah, it's interesting. I moved to Marlow on my own as well and didn't know anyone. So it's not quite the same as France, but it takes a while for even for you to decide that someone's your friend, not even the other way around. You
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not because you just speak English that you want to be friends with someone. You want to be stimulated and find a common interest.
So did you arrive already as a journalist? Was that your profession when you arrived in France?
No, I wanted to be a journalist. I grew up wanting to write my whole life. I wrote my first book when I was in grade 2. And I
Wow.
remember because my teacher laminated the book and I was asked to read it to the junior kindergarten class. And I thought, this is it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I was accepted to journalism at Carleton University in Ottawa. And at the time, in the late 80s, journalism had one choice, and it was hard news. It's not like now. You could write about pretty much any subject you want, and with so many different platforms and mediums. But then it was sort of, newspaper, TV, radio, and it was just difficult for me because I am very empathetic and sensitive. And the turning point for me, there was 2 things that really turned me off journalism at that point, and it made me distinguish between wanting to be a journalist and wanting to be a writer was the ethics of the profs. I really didn't appreciate. I mean, one of the lectures, 2 of them were on stage talking about how, if you really need a story, you can go into your colleagues' files, like do what is necessary to get the story. And the other part of that was knocking on someone's door at 2 in the morning because their kids have been killed in an accident, and you want to be the first to get a picture.
Gosh.
And
Yeah.
I was like, but the turning point again for me on that was we had a small TA class, a teaching assistant class, and there was maybe a dozen of us. And the teacher said to us, what was the story? He said, oh, a senator, could be a congressman, had called a press conference to say he was going to retire. And so this happens, the news media is there, and then the cameras stop rolling and everybody's starting to go away. And this person took a gun out of a paper bag and shot himself in the mouth. Apparently, it's a true story. And the question he put to the table of wannabe journalists around that day was, what would you do? And I just happened to be sitting last. So he went through everybody and they had all these, I'd go talk to his wife. I'd make sure I got pictures of the bag and his, and then they came to me and they're like, well, what would you do, Nancy? And I was like, I'd throw up. And I realized at that point that journalism wasn't for me. I wanted to write, but I was still quite young. When you're in university, and so I went into Plan B, which was teaching, and spent a couple of years teaching in Quebec, which didn't work for me either because it was too limited in my creativity. So it took me a while, but when I came here, I was working with a language school. I think a lot of people end up doing that when they first
Yeah.
come here. We end up working with a language school. And this one was really good. It was in Sophia Antipolis. It was called Group Set. And one of the advantages I offered and brought to that school was that I had a North American accent. And at the time, that was a big thing in the 2000s. People didn't want just British, they wanted North American accents. And I set myself up as a consultant, which, was very costly at the time, but it allowed me to work. And, it was standing in the lobby of Amadeus where I was going to do some group teaching. And I was standing to get my badge to enter this great big building. And I'm looking down, and there's a free magazine on the desk. And the magazine cover is divorce, and it has a man and a woman, and it's kind of like cut in half, like a broken heart. And this is like 1990 again. So like the Photoshop wasn't great, but it was, and I was just divorced. I had the world's shortest marriage, but it really was not a great situation. And I thought, oh, I'm going to read like what divorce is like. And I opened up the magazine, and I think on the first few pages it said, oh, we're looking for someone to help. I don't know if it was with the writing or with the page layout. And I was like, oh. And I got into the Riviera Reporter magazine like that. And the woman that I replaced, I remember sitting there and she was teaching me all this stuff about page layout. And, I didn't know anything, but I was trying to learn. And she had been there for 4 years. And I thought, 4 years is forever. When you're in your like 20s and 30s, a job for
Yeah.
4 years seems like you're at retirement. And I stayed for 15. So yeah, it was a great job.
It's a great learning curve, isn't it? Because it's a new job, it's a new country, and a whole new skill set for you to learn. And you sound like somebody that likes to have some brain stimulation. So I'm sure that worked for you because it's different all the time, isn't it? You're interviewing different people, you're doing different layouts. So from then, your kind of journalism really kind of, I guess, it took you as something that you actually enjoyed. And then that closed down because of Brexit. Is that right?
Yeah, it did really well. I mean, at the time, the Riviera Reporter was the only English language magazine, and there
Mhm.
was not internet at the time, so it was just a magazine. And I loved it. And the reason I loved it was because it was a way to live in the south of France and learn so much about living in France and the laws and the rules, because we had Patrick Middleton who did a lot of writing about the law and things that we needed to know that was important information. And so you just sort of became this figure that everybody knew. And I loved that. And I was learning all the time, and I didn't have to go meet people. It was all by email. So for 15 years, I was always managing my life. Yeah,
I was going to say
it was fun.
it might have been a social outlet for you as well, but no.
I quite enjoy being social, but I like it through written word. And again, it was one of those things where I wasn't sure how much of my personal life I really wanted people to know. I was, I'm still quite, and I am still quite guarded, even though I can do podcasts and these types of things. But the Riviera Reporter was the biggest opportunity of my life. And honestly, I just when we arrive somewhere professionally in our lives and you look back, I can remember a couple of moments with that magazine that without it, I wouldn't be here. And I always say I'm grateful to Mike Mead for giving me an opportunity to take on that role, because it was a very small company. And my first article opportunity with them was this woman had colonic. She gave colonics in Antibes, and she was an advertiser, and she contacted and said, look, I'd love to give one of your writers a couple of colonics, and then you guys could write about the article. Obviously, nobody wanted to do it. So they were like, Nancy, do you want to do this? So it was my very first byline, and it said, don't it make my brown eyes blue? And I remember it. And it was just so neat to finally have my name because I'd always wanted to be a writer. Like, finally, like years and years later, a long way around, I finally was published. And then that just turned into all kinds of opportunities. I became a writer for Fodor's travel guides in the US. I wrote with them for 15 years, and that allowed me to develop my travel side. So I was wrote for all kinds of airline magazines. And once you're in airline magazines, you don't have to just write about travel. You can write about things like running or sports. And it just blossomed. My whole life blossomed. On paper, I think you would say, oh, I had a really great life. But again, I struggled a lot because I didn't socially like have a lot of friends, and love was just not coming near me. When my family is in Canada, my dad died, my mom had cancer. So you're trying to manage all those things. Again, just prior to having all the easy communication we have now, like WhatsApp and things, like it was very difficult to be in touch. So it was tough. I was having all these advancements in my career, and I was like, oh, and I was visiting out places all over the world, but I was always by myself.
But we do have, no spoiler alert, but there is a happy ending. We can give a happy ending here. But
Yeah,
even
well,
that,
yeah,
so you're an author, you're a journalist, you've launched your own book just recently and set up your own publishing company. But you have this great new podcast. Well, I say new, it's 2 years, isn't it? And it's the story of getting together with somebody that you had actually fallen madly in love with like many years ago, and
yeah.
this reconnection, and Nancy and PJ finally getting together is the story. It's therapy, it's relationship stories, it's couples therapy. How did you, I mean, the kind of the in and out of love, we've lots of us have had
Yeah.
those kind of relationships, but how did you reconnect in another country after all those years? Or to give us a little brief overview, because obviously we've got so many other things to talk about that you've done.
I think most of us have believed that relationships don't work out because of timing. And I have this theory that women live in the past and the future. Like, we're always thinking about what we should have said to the person we were into, or what we're going to say the next time we see them. And guys just kind of live in the present tense. And it creates all these like weird dramas in our life. But ultimately, we all feel it comes down to timing. Like, it just didn't work. And my
Oh,
husband and I met, right? My husband, I used to say women are from, what is that book?
it's
Something
the
about
women are from
Venus and
Venus
Mars.
and men are from Mars.
And I would say women are from, sorry, I was going to say women are from Biza and men are from bars. That's how I see it. That's how
Honestly.
we adjust to it.
Whereas women are kind of looking for, the perfect this, perfect that. And a guy's like, if he's ready for a relationship, suddenly, yeah, I'm ready for who's in front of me. That's it. Because
Oh
they are
yeah.
in the present. Whereas a woman, as you say, they're kind of thinking, well, I can't do this and I want to do that. And a guy's like, yeah, okay, I'm ready for a relationship. Who's in front of me now?
Well, it's funny because when I met my husband, so we met in May 1990, and I just referenced that date because we met at a French immersion program in Quebec. And the day that we met, par hasard, by chance, I was started writing a diary in French because I wanted to write down the experience. And I basically kept a diary from that day until the day we got married, which was 20 years later. But and so we fell madly in love, but I was young and we broke up several times. But when we finally got together 20 years later, and I went back and I read these journals, I realized I thought I was always right about him
Of
being the
course.
idiot right. And then I realized neither of us were right. Like, neither of our recollections of what happened were right, except that all those years that I was wanting him to be that guy that just said, I love you. That's what I wanted. But now I read the things that he did, and he was saying that he loved me. But I don't know. I was just dumb. I wanted that full romantic sweep me off my feet. I did the craziest things. Like, I just think, okay, I blame it on drinking. But I now look at it and go, yeah, we all want that stuff. And I'm glad that we actually got together later when I was a bit more mature and have these diaries. But we decided to write, when we finally got together, we didn't talk for about 7 or 8 years. When we finally reunited, and he moved to France in 2010 and we got married. And we decided to write a manuscript about our love story. And I know this probably sounds really, I don't know, egotistical, or like, who do we think we are? But it is like a really mind blowing love story that everybody wants. And he is a stand-up comic, and actually he was on Sex and the City. He was an actor. He lived in LA for a long time. And so he has writing abilities and I have writing abilities. And we thought it'd be really funny if we each wrote our own version of what happened to say that neither of us are right. And so we wrote a book together that we didn't see what each other was writing. And it then comes together as a story, a love story that ends over 20 years and will leave you in tears. I just edited the last, I don't know, 2 chapters last week, and I was bawling my eyes out because it's mostly my husband writing to me, which I have all the emails and all the letters, and all of my account is in diaries. So it's my literal words and what happened. And I'm bawling my eyes out and I'm thinking, am I crying because this is like, this person loves me this much and it's terrifying? Or am I bawling my eyes out because we all want somebody to love us like that? And so we had the manuscript, and our agent said, one of the things you need to do is promote yourselves, which we're not very good at. So we created the podcast. Nancy and PJ finally get together, and it's an ongoing story. So it comes out twice a month, and we talk about couple stuff or like how we drive each other crazy. And at the end, we always have a diary entry about what really happened in our relationship. And it's really fun because it's completely embarrassing because sometimes I think, first of all, I could not write. Secondly, I can't believe I acted that way. And PJ doesn't look in the best of light at times either. So, but it's so much fun to be creative together. I just love it.
Well, it's like having your own couples therapy that you don't need to pay for as well.
But you know what the funny thing is I have to read the diary entries again now when I prepare the episodes. Like you prepare for your episodes, you have to, there's a lot of work involved in these things. And I'll read through it and I know what's going to happen in real time. Like I know something bad's coming up. And even now, 20, 30 years later, it still makes me sad, or it still makes my stomach go into knots knowing what one or the other is going to live through, even though we've come out of it. But, words can really do something to you, and emotions. So the podcast also, I mean, it was much more difficult for me because I'm not on the entertainment side. He's really good at it. But then it opened this other door for me, and Monaco has its Monaco Info, which is like the BBC. And they offered me the opportunity to do their English language podcast. They don't have a lot of English in Monaco, if you can imagine. But so that's been really exciting too, because I can now bring in all these like great people and we can just have chit chats. And you know what it's like, just it's fun. Podcasts are fun.
Yeah, I think it's a really great opportunity. What I've enjoyed in just my very short journey in the podcast world is reconnecting with people that I haven't spoken to for a long time, or having an excuse to make a connection that you wouldn't normally be able to do unless it was come on my
Exactly.
podcast and have a chat, please.
Exactly.
And yeah, there's something really, you're in Monte Carlo, I'm in Marlow, and it's great that we can just sit here and chat.
Have a connection. You know what it feels like to live here.
Yeah.
And I think
I
that
spent
that's what really makes
my
a
COVID
podcast great.
year in Villefranche. I was there for the year from March to
Wow.
December, actually. So, yeah. In it with
Yeah, I know.
I saw on one of your, when I was obviously like stalking you on Instagram doing my research, I saw you with your attestation for the form that we could finally rip up and get
Oh,
out,
Jesus.
because everyone says, "Oh, you're so lucky to have had your lockdown in the south of France." I'm like, it was quite strict,
I don't
actually.
think people understand how brutal that was, those attestations. You could go 1 kilometer. I mean, we were checked all the time. And I don't like I live less than a kilometer from Monaco, and I was checked every time I walked out my house. 1 kilometer, 60 minutes. Um, it was devastating. And actually, the funniest part about that attestation was my husband and I think in the 30 years we've known each other, and at least on the happy relationship part, not when we were like trying to figure it out, we don't fight. And sometimes there's a lot of eye rolling, but we don't fight. And during COVID, there was one day they had just announced the extension of the, what do you call it, confinement. And it was a Friday. And both of us were annoyed, and we got testy with each other, not because we were mad at each other, but we were just frustrated and not listening to each other. And we both went to leave, and neither of us could find our attestations. And then when we found them, we were trying to like madly erase the date and put the right time with a pencil. And it was so comical that by the end of it we were like, okay, well, we can't go anywhere anyway, so let's figure it out. But COVID, it was hard.
So I
Yeah,
was
it was
like
brutal.
constantly having to get my neighbor to print out my
uh,
form. Yeah, it was awful. But
it was
anyway,
brutal.
back to better times. So what made the moves? You were in Nice, you were living in Nice, and then you moved to Monaco. Whereabouts do you live now?
I live 1 kilometer from Monaco on the east side. because I lived in Nice for 15 years and I felt that the safety issues in Nice were no longer something I could abide by. And my husband and I both work in Monaco as a journalist, my hours are quite different. So I would be going home by train at, 9, 10 at night. And between the strikes and the cancellations of trains and just
Right.
the unsafety and the issues, a lack of safety and issues and dope and pot and all of those things on the train, I just didn't feel safe anymore.
Mm,
And the crime in Nice, personally, from what I witnessed, things had changed. And I felt that you get to a tipping point where there's no coming back. And
yeah.
we've always lived in Nice. It was like, by the Negresco. So 300 meters, everything's there. And we have never lived on this side of Monaco. We took a train to this tiny little train station called Roquebrune Cap Martin
I know.
in our
Yeah.
bathing suits. We got in the water in our bathing suits and we swam to Monaco and we looked up to see, like, how do you access the beach here? Because we're open water swimmers. And that's how we found our apartment, just by looking up, like, where can you access the sea? Because you can't swim in Monaco, and swimming's really important for us. We're
Mm,
also both French citizens, naturalized, so there's no point for us to live in Monaco there's no tax benefits for us. So we
yeah.
moved here. We took a random chance. It's just been the greatest thing ever. And Monaco has continued. I've really just focused on Monaco, and I'm again, like, just more opportunities that have allowed me to progress. And I'm very grateful. Forbes Monaco came on. There was existed for 5 years, and that really sort of took me to the next level in terms of connecting with people that you want to hear from.
Yeah.
Like having those kinds of profiles and people that you can invite on the podcast and stuff. So I'm always again grateful. And Forbes Monaco closed to licensing issues, and the CEO launched a new magazine called the Monegasque, which is it's like a New Yorker, but more obviously about Monaco. So again, like, really privileged. I'm very grateful for the opportunities.
And then
And
talk.
then yes, and the books
Let's get
company,
onto the
yes.
book. Let's go because I really want to get onto the book. So, but it was a really by chance moment, really, that you were invited along to be part of this launch, and you got to know women in motorsport, and then you were inspired from there. So, tell us about how the inspiration came along to actually write a book.
Okay, so obviously, again, like, the writing theme comes in. I've been writing for magazines forever, but I've still always wanted to write my own book because our book couldn't get published yet. And so I was having coffee in Monaco. So Monaco, let's just paint the picture here. Monaco, everybody knows because it has all the Formula One drivers. I think the top 6 ranking drivers right now, for example, all are resident in Monaco. But there's also this thriving women's community of women that work in motorsport in various degrees. So Susie Wolf would be the most popular, the most famous, because she's the director of the Formula One Academy, which is under Formula One's umbrella to develop women talent in Formula One and motorsport. Susie lives in Monaco. And a couple of years ago, I reached out to her and said, "Look, like, we'd love to have a coffee with you." So it was myself. I'd never met her. It was myself, the president of the Women in Motorsport Commission in Monaco, a woman that runs a women's charity rally in Monaco, and the then director of the Princess Car Collection. We didn't know each other very well, but we wanted to meet with her and just see, like, what could we do. Susie is a very dynamic person. It's because of Susie I walked away and created a book publishing company and a book on women in motorsport, because she had been talking about how do you develop something for young girls in Monaco. Monaco doesn't have a lot for young people to do. And so they were trying to create an event around cars and motorsport. And if you've never watched Formula One or you don't know much about motorsport, those first conversations are like learning a different language, because it's like, is that a car name? Is that a city? Like, what are they talking about? So my head was like spinning, and they were talking about doing this event for young students. And I walked away thinking, well, I'm not in the world of cars, but I could write. So I could maybe do a series of stories. And I called a girlfriend of mine. When you walk away, there has to be a moment, Krista, in your life when you walked away from something and you're like so motivated, nothing can stop you, right? You had that moment?
Oh, I mean, people that inspire you all the time, it's fantastic. It's like leaving on a high, isn't it? I absolutely
Oh,
love those conversations. Yeah. I feel like I'm having one now, Nancy.
but that's how I felt. And I called a girlfriend of mine. I was like, oh my gosh, like, they're going to do this event around girls, and I think I'll write a book. And I think we could motivate young people and inspire them here. And my girlfriend has at the time, her daughter was 10. And she said to me, I'd love to do that. I'd love to create something for my own daughter. But she said, we'd probably have to create our own publishing house here in Monaco. And I was like, sure, not having a clue what any of that meant. But we So the book was actually before creating the publishing house, but we created in March of 2024, it was official. We created Carob Tree Publishing, which is Monaco's first women-owned publishing house. And I want to just emphasize that my partner and I are not wealthy, and it's our money. You know, it's like my husband is a teacher and I'm a journalist. And as I joke, like you can't get a better like low income coming in than those two professions. But this was something I felt very committed to doing. I want to create opportunities for young people. So we created Carob Tree Publishing to be able to publish a book. And the book turned into this unbelievable project. And I'll share it with you. It's called 100 Years of Women Motorsport in Monaco. And I discovered that in 1925, the very first woman that qualified on the podium, she came second in the Monte Carlo Rally. And she drove from Tunisia 4,000 kilometers. You know, those old rickety cars, 4,000 kilometers, no GPS, nothing. And she finished second in this, you know, international rally. Madame Mertens was her name. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And then I started discovering all these women that have driven in Monaco for various races and have gone on to, you know, fly the first woman to fly solo around the world, or they went on to create the first women driving school, and all the challenges that these different people get. A woman who used to date Steve McQueen, you know, Denise McCluggage, she raced in Monaco. They had the same Porsche. They met in New York. They started dating. You know, it's all of these amazing human beings have
Amazing
all been
story.
here. And the idea was to create a book of stories that are all the women that have raced here, the women that work in Monaco, and the next generation. And so that's what we did. And the idea is that you could open it up to any page and you could just read those two stories and go, oh, okay, I've just learned something about, you know, a person. I think the hardest thing is communicating that it's not just about motorsport. This is about women just doing what they want to do in life. None of these women are going, oh, you know, the men said I can't drive. It was just like, this is what I had to do. The book is not for profit. And I've worked in Monaco a long time. And I'll be really honest, I thought it's not going to be that difficult to raise money for this book because I already have the connections. And I think the most frustrating part of this and the greatest part of the learning process has been that when I approached banks or potential investors or businesses about a project that was not profit, is being published and printed in Monaco, that is stories about Monaco, stories about women, stories about our next generation, I was always met with the same response, and that was, "We already have a women's project." You know,
So surprising.
we already have one of those.
I'm
Yeah.
like you. I would have thought this kind of project would get a green light from so many people.
You know what? And then the more frustrating part was the book was created for the event. So what was our event? Susie wasn't involved in the event because Formula One Academy doesn't race in Monaco, so they couldn't actually financially support it, or Susie couldn't be a part of putting on an event for young people. But on January 24th, International Women's Sports Day of this year, 2025, we held an event to launch this book. And we did it at the Princess Car Collection. We had 120, 140 female students because Monaco has some pretty unique, its international school has a special sports program. The girls can go off and do their driving and they can have special studies. The International University of Monaco has a special sports management program. There's all kind, and there's so many women. So we had 120 young women in the audience. Michelle Mouton, who is probably one of the greatest rally drivers of all time, was our guest of honor. We had a panel of speakers that represented FIA, that represented Formula One Academy, Formula E. The woman who negotiated the contracts for Netflix lives in Monaco for the Formula One Academy Netflix series with Reese Witherspoon. We had these 5 incredible women. So we did this. People were crying. And at the end of it, each of the students were given a book. And, you know, my partner and I we have 8 women writers to do this book. We raised enough money to pay them and we ran out of money. So I ended up writing half the book because we wanted to pay people. I would never ask somebody to write for free. We had all these writers and we gave these books to the students and they came up and said, this has changed my life. And then
Wow.
Prince Albert came and we launched the book officially. And the coolest thing is if I can just show this really quickly, but in our next generation, we have 2 Monaco residents are right now racing. Ella Hakkinen, you know the name? Hakkinen? So Ella's father is a 2-time Formula One race champion, and Ella is determined to race in Formula One as a girl. And she was just signed with McLaren as the youngest driver in their sports development, in their drivers development program. And so there's a story about Ella that you'll never read anywhere else. There's a story about Susie Wolf you'll never read anywhere else. Do you think that we can sell the book?
So
Because people
where can you buy the book?
right now it's through our website and in places in Monaco.
Yeah.
So Amazon, just if I can say, Amazon won't allow us to sell because we're a Monaco-based company. So we can't sell
What?
through Amazon. Yeah.
Is that
So, but
to Monaco or because you
yeah, they
are
said because Monaco is on the gray zone still, it's on the OECD, so they have refused us to sell. And again, there are pictures in this book that have never been published of women, and it's all like thanks to the Automobile Club. And it's, it's a historical book, never been done before in English, all of these things.
such a great
And
looking book.
we can't get it to international sales. So you can still buy it. And again, it's a not-for-profit book. And I think it's like the greatest thing. No matter what happens, it was, let's do this. It's happened. We connected with young people and they were inspired.
And do you see, because that book is a big deal, it's a really big deal. Do you see a kind of a snowball effect of like, okay, well, because of this book, this is going to happen, or because of this book, I'm going to then do this next? Or do you see any other trickle effects of that inspiration that you've given those girls already?
I think so, because a lot of the girls that were, at least were in the events, have tried to follow up. They've asked for different placements. The idea was to say, look, you can get a career in motorsport because it's not going anywhere and it's $1 billion industry. So there's something for everyone. Motorsport isn't about being a driver. And if you are into sustainability, there's things you can do. It's not going anywhere as a sport, no matter how you feel about petrol. So find your place, because there are things happening and it's a really long term. There's things that you can develop and just pick up the skills. Like, I came here with not a lot of skills for writing, and here I am 25 years later. Life is that. Like, start the journey through motorsport and you can have so many opportunities. And so I've seen some of the people, and I just had, again, I just interviewed Susie Wolf for the Monaco Info podcast last week to talk about her new book, Driven. And she's just that person. She inspires me. I don't know. She just has that in her where I'm like, I walk away going, I can do better. I could be better. I can do more. We need to keep trying. And I just, like, my whole life for me right now, the focus is trying to give people opportunities. And, and that's why I'm grateful when people like you, Krista, say, can we talk about stuff? I hope it doesn't come across like I'm talking about myself. I really believe that there's so much we can do for young people, and the dialogue needs to be like cross-generational to give them hope. The weight of the world is on these young people, and I want them to feel like, there is life out there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it doesn't sound like it sounds like you're just giving opportunities and showcasing other people, and especially championing women, which is incredible. And I do think young people having something that is sport, something that's outdoors, that is off screens, that is career driven with a passion that you could have for it as well, is such a great thing to be able to show that.
I want to just add one thing, is that there's so much time and energy being spent about the first woman that's going to drive in Formula One in 50 years, or the first, or the first engineer in motorsport, the first this. We need more than first. We need the second, third, fourths, and fifths. It's not just like, the demand has to be there for opportunity to be created. And women have to be better to each other. I mean, part of the reason that the book doesn't sell in Monaco is because women don't buy it. They say, I don't like motorsport. And I'm like, it's not just about that. It's a publishing company that's run by women in Monaco. Money is going to support young people. You don't have to like motorsport to enjoy and appreciate the history of this book. And so much of it is Monaco. But if women don't start realizing that success is not finite in this world, that if I become successful, I'm taking away your success. I'm not. And unless we really, and this I believe wholeheartedly, and I really try to get across, that let's just help each other and just be kinder. But we can all succeed. But if you start taking anyone down, you're bringing us all down.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree. You've got me now thinking, how can this book be in more places? And
Oh, thank you.
are there any, could you not get it into some stores that are in the UK or in other countries?
So we're working on that now
Yeah.
with
I'm like, can I go to Foyles
distribution.
with your book and try and say this needs to be here?
Well, Foyles was he was our lived here. They were Monaco residents. Yeah. So foils is anyone that you can find. We're happy to, but a lot of the initial distribution has been very difficult because again, we're in Monaco. So anyone
We
that
have a
wants to
great
help, we're
bookshop.
happy.
We have a great bookshop in Marlow, the Marlow Bookshop. Do you know Daunt Books in Marylebone? You heard of
I do not.
the Marlow Bookshop is incredible. They have loads of author events. It's really well supported and visited. We need to get a book on a showcase in the window in Marlow.
Well,
That's
also, there's just so many like international drivers, and the British drivers that are included in this book are phenomenal. The things that they have done, just phenomenal. Like driven off a cliff in a rally, and then got back in a car and won a rally the next week. You know, they just kept going, and even for them, you know, sponsorship was always a big thing. But there's a lot of international taste and flavor in this book. It's not about France or it's not about Monaco. It's just that we had to find the connection to thread all these fabulous, adventurous women together. And it happens to be they all at some point have been in Monaco or live in Monaco.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Chris
I would
Evans,
love
we're
to do
calling
more.
you. Chris Evans, we need you to get this book in your
Chris
hands.
Evans,
Talk
come on
about
down, Chris Evans. Come on down to Monaco. We'll have you on the Monaco Info podcast.
well, congratulations on the book and the publishing
Thanks,
company.
Krista.
For your
Thank you very
next
much.
chapter, I kind of can't wait to see what you're going to do next because I know that you are just this passionate person that just wants to do more and more. I see myself in terms of you having that confidence of like, yeah, I'll give it a go. I'm very much like, yeah, why not? Why not do it? You know?
Yeah, it's something to put yourself out there. If the book company doesn't work, you know, already in the 2 years we've had it out, we're shifting from this idea that everyone shares our belief that, you know, in proximity, you create a book that's printed in Monaco that uses Monaco services or around us, and people will support that. They don't care, you know. So we're shifting from really that. And hardcovers weren't our purpose. We want to do women's voices and books and novels. So, you know, now we're just kind of becoming like a cool indie publishing house out of Monaco that we want to get women's stories out there. Women's
Yeah.
stories that should be told. I don't really believe everyone has a story, and just because you're a woman, like, hey, but I think there's some phenomenal voices out there that have that can make us cry and can make us upset, and
Yeah.
let's share that
Inspiring
stuff,
story.
inspire us. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
hopefully that will be the next turn. But if it doesn't work, it's yeah, you kind of feel like, oh, it's a bit embarrassing. But is it? I tried.
No, it's not at all. It's absolutely commendable. There's nothing embarrassing about what you that at all. If you don't give these things a go, you never know what's going to happen. I always think you put things out there and you never know where they're going to go anyway. So,
Yeah.
there's never a kind of a start and finish. There's just a start and then it
Well,
can just go anywhere, I think.
Well,
Yeah.
that's and I know we have to round it up, but that's entirely my relationship with my husband. And I think how we live our lives so much is that we spend so much time and energy thinking about like what this means right now. And sometimes you plant that seed and 10 years later, I've always wanted to live in France. It took me, you know, another 15 years to get here finally. And then I always wanted to write a book. It took me 20 years. All these things. My relationship with the person I love and think is the greatest human being on the earth took me 30 years. But at the time, I would have thought, oh, it's over and done with. But it all is in motion, and you have to have faith in that it's going somewhere.
Yeah. Look forward. Absolutely. Oh, Nancy, we could actually just sit and chat for another hour because there's loads
Yeah,
of
you're amazing, Krista.
you've done. So maybe we'll try and do a part 2 in 2026 and see
Sure.
what other things have gone on since and what else you've been doing because you're so lively. You've got such an amazing
Oh, thank
energy
you.
that
I
I
appreciate
really
it.
thank you.
So when you come down to Monaco next, we'll go to Marlow, the new
We'll go to
British
Marlow. I'm going to
eatery.
grab a copy of your book and I'm going to bring it back to the UK and show it to everyone. I mean,
Thank you, Krista.
I feel like there's a lot of women in the industry that I worked in more in beauty industry that are championing and supporting women more. And I feel like it's the kind of thing that there could be events and panels and talks around. So you've
I
planted a
love
seed
that
with me
stuff.
now as well.
Thank you for sharing this story. I really appreciate that, Krista, and I hope that you will come down soon.
Yeah, I will definitely be there soon.